What if I told you that one of the most extraordinary women of the Victorian age was remembered not for her beauty, not for her wealth, but for something hidden, whispered about, and written into medical history, her intimate area recorded as the widest ever known. Doctors marveled, crowds were astonished, and Queen Victoria herself honored this woman with a wedding gown. She was at once a marvel, a curiosity, and a tragic icon. Welcome to the channel, my friends. Here, we lift the velvet curtain of the past to reveal its strangest, darkest corners. If this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell, because tonight, you will step into a story so bizarre, so unsettling, it will haunt you long after the screen goes dark. This is the story of Anna Swan, the Canadian giantess whose body defied nature, whose intimate secret shocked the medical world, and whose life remains one of history's strangest and most haunting tales. Part 1. A child too large for the world, Anna Haining Swan was born on August 6, 1846, in the rural community of Millbrook, Nova Scotia, Canada. She was the third of 13 children in a modest Scottish family. At birth, she weighed over 18 pounds, twice the size of a normal newborn. The midwives whispered that this child was touched by fate, that something uncanny had entered the world. Her infancy was already extraordinary. By her 4th birthday, Anna was taller than most 12-year-old children. By age 6, she measured 5 feet 2 inches, towering over many adults in her town. Her clothes had to be specially tailored, her shoes handmade, her bed constantly rebuilt to fit her frame. And the growth never stopped. At puberty, she stood over 7 feet tall. By adulthood, she reached 7 feet 11 inches, 241 centimeters, a height that placed her among the tallest women in recorded history. Her weight exceeded 400 pounds, yet her body maintained proportional grace. She was not misshapen or grotesque, but rather astonishingly statuesque, a living monument of human biology. The townspeople called her the giantess. Local newspapers printed her measurements, and doctors traveled miles just to examine her. Her anatomy became a subject of fascination. Medical records noted not only her staggering height, but her pelvic breadth, which would later make her infamous. Her pelvis measured over 19 inches across, the widest ever documented, a fact that stunned physicians and fueled both awe and gossip. Anna's parents, humble farmers, were overwhelmed. Feeding her required enormous quantities of food. Outfitting her was nearly impossible. Every chair broke beneath her weight, every doorway bent to her stature, every mirror failed to contain her reflection. She was too large for the world that surrounded her. Yet, despite her immense size, Anna was soft-spoken and gentle. She loved music, played the piano, and read poetry. She longed for the same simple happiness her sisters had: a quiet marriage, children, and a normal life. But Anna Swan's body had already destined her for something very different. By the time she was a teenager, promoters and showmen were offering money to display her to the public. The Victorian era was an age obsessed with curiosities, the strange, the monstrous, the extraordinary. And Anna, whether she liked it or not, would become one of its greatest spectacles. Anna Swan's extraordinary body could no longer be hidden in rural Nova Scotia. By her late teens, her story had reached across the Atlantic. Promoters wrote letters, newspapers spread her name, and soon she was invited to join the spectacle of spectacles, P.T. Barnum's American Museum in New York. Barnum was a master of turning human difference into profit. He displayed bearded ladies, Siamese twins, dwarfs, and freaks of every description. But Anna Swan was different. She wasn't grotesque, she was majestic. Towering nearly 8 feet tall, dressed in gowns specially tailored with miles of fabric, she entered Barnum's stage not as a monster, but as a queen among curiosities. Audiences gasped. Men craned their necks to see her face. Women whispered about her dresses, sewn in proportions unimaginable. Children stared in awe, clutching their parents' hands. Anna became one of Barnum's greatest attractions, a living advertisement for the age's obsession with the strange. Yet Barnum, ever the showman, knew there was more to sell than height. He emphasized her intimate measurements, quietly passed among journalists, and whispered in salons. Her pelvis, the largest recorded, became part of her legend. Doctors came with calipers, measuring tapes, and notebooks, eager to turn her body into science. Anna endured it all with grace. She spoke gently, answered questions politely, and played piano for curious visitors. Her humanity disarmed those who expected a beast. And yet, the spectacle was always tinged with cruelty. Every compliment carried a shadow. She was admired not for who she was, but for the vastness of her body. In 1865, Anna traveled to London, where her fame reached its peak. There, she was presented to Queen Victoria herself. The Queen was fascinated, not horrified. She spoke kindly to Anna, treating her not as a curiosity, but as a guest of honor. And when Anna later announced her engagement, Queen Victoria sent a wedding gift, a gown of finest silk, yards upon yards of fabric, made to fit the tallest bride the world had ever seen. It was a moment of triumph and a cruel irony. For while Anna was celebrated by royalty and adored by crowds, her private life was a battlefield. She longed for children, for family, for peace. But her immense body, with its record-breaking pelvis and towering frame, made every aspect of her intimate life a subject of gossip, speculation, and invasive fascination. The world applauded Anna Swan, but it was applause laced with whispers. She was both admired and pitied, both honored and exploited. And beneath the spotlight, Anna smiled a smile that concealed the loneliness of being a woman too large for the world. Anna Swan's fame eventually brought her into contact with the only man who could stand beside her without craning his neck, Martin Van Buren Bates, the Kentucky giant. Standing at 7 feet 9 inches, Bates was himself a spectacle of the age. When Anna met him in the 1870s, the press had a field day two giants, drawn together by fate like characters out of a myth. Their courtship was celebrated. Newspapers called it the Union of the Giants. Crowds followed their appearances. Promoters dreamed of displaying them together, the tallest couple in the world. But behind the sensationalism, Anna and Martin found in each other something rare: companionship. They knew the loneliness of towering above the world, of being stared at as curiosities, of enduring whispers about their bodies. In one another, they found someone who understood. In 1871, they married in London. The ceremony was a spectacle, attended by thousands. Anna wore the gown Queen Victoria had gifted her, a river of silk flowing over her towering frame. The press described it as a fairy tale, though a darker one than most. For while the world applauded the novelty of their size, Anna and Martin were simply two human beings yearning for a normal life. They settled in Seville, Ohio, and built a custom home with high ceilings, tall doorways, and giant furniture. For the first time, Anna had a place where she could move without stooping, where her body did not feel like an intruder. And soon, she was expecting a child. The world waited eagerly. What child would two giants bring into the world? Doctors speculated. Newspapers printed predictions. The public's curiosity was feverish, as if the pregnancy were not a private matter, but a public experiment. In 1872, Anna gave birth to a daughter weighing 18 pounds, already the size of a normal 6-month-old. The baby, however, lived only a few hours. The couple grieved privately, while the press treated the tragedy as another headline. Still, Anna hoped. A few years later, she conceived again. This time, the baby was even larger. It was the cruelest irony. Anna Swan, whose intimate area and pelvis were legendary for their extraordinary breadth, had seemed destined to bear children with ease. Yet her children, too large for life, were claimed by death. The very feature that had made her famous became the symbol of her heartbreak. After the second loss, Anna and Martin withdrew from public life. They continued to appear occasionally in exhibitions, but the spark of wonder had dimmed. Behind their towering figures were hearts weighed down by grief. The giantess who had once been hailed by queens and kings now lived quietly in Ohio, surrounded not by cheering crowds, but by silence. After the death of her children, Anna Swan lived quietly with her husband in their specially built Ohio home. The house, with its towering ceilings and oversized furniture, was both a refuge and a reminder of her difference. For neighbors, she was still a local legend. Visitors still came to stare. But Anna herself grew weary of spectacle. She spent her days playing piano, tending to her garden, and reading. Those who knew her described her as intelligent, gentle, and deeply kind. She avoided the limelight, but her size made anonymity impossible. Even in private, she was a public figure. In 1888, Anna fell ill. On August 5th, just one day before her 42nd birthday, she died unexpectedly in her sleep. The cause was reported as heart failure. Her immense body, after decades of strain, could no longer sustain her. Her funeral drew crowds. People came not only to mourn, but to witness, one last time, the giantess of Nova Scotia. The coffin had to be specially constructed, over 8 feet long. 6 strong men struggled to carry it. Yet the fascination did not end with her death. Doctors requested examinations. Measurements were taken. Her anatomy, especially her pelvis and intimate area, was once again written into medical journals. It was confirmed. Anna Swan's pelvic size was the largest ever documented, a fact that cemented her place in medical history. But what did this mean for her legacy? For some, Anna Swan was a medical marvel, proof of the extremes of human biology. For others, she was a sideshow attraction, forever defined by her body. But for those who looked deeper, she was something else entirely. A woman trapped between admiration and exploitation, between fame and loneliness. Her story reveals the contradictions of the Victorian age. It was a time that worshipped progress and science, yet turned human difference into spectacle. A time that crowned her with gifts from queens, yet reduced her to whispers about her intimate area. Anna's life was both extraordinary and heartbreaking. She was celebrated as a giantess, but longed simply to be Anna. She was measured, studied, and gawked at, but within her lived a woman who loved music, longed for children, and endured loss with grace. Today, she remains in the annals of history, not just as the woman with the widest pelvis, but as a haunting reminder of how society treats those who are different. Her body made her a legend, but her humanity made her unforgettable. And so, when we speak of Anna Swan, we speak not only of her size, but of her strength. Not only of her intimate secret, but of her resilience. She carried the weight of a world that saw her as curiosity, and in that weight, she left behind a story that is equal parts wonder and tragedy.